No. You didn't notice that I had skin grafts and those massive burns on my face when I battled the serial killer are gone.
Oh, those. Yeah, I should have known to ask you about that, even though I can't see you right now. Whatever happened to those, Mark?
Well, it was a fortune, but I just had to get them taken off, and now people don't scream when I'm out in public.
Oh, did you have that done because you're an old man like Donald Pleasance was on the movie set of Halloween 6, and they said, let's give him a break. He's old, and we can't have him in the makeup chair for 4 hours anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, that answers that.
Yeah, so I really got to thank this movie for giving me the strength to move forward with that.
Yeah, well, it's a very inspirational movie.
All right, now when Wynn asks Donald Pleasance to come back,
Dr. Wynn, right?
Yeah, he just wants him there because of the upcoming ritual.
That's actually a great question. I think he's giving his sales pitch at some point, right? Ancient, uncorrupted, evil, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, is he doing this to rub Loomis's nose in it? Because, he spent, 30 years of his life chasing down this guy and he could never, figure it out, or he was a failed psychiatrist? Or is he join me in my epic crusade, even though you spent the last 3 decades of your life trying to deliver us all from evil? It's a little uncertain to me.
And he's talking about the world ending when he's like, there's pest and pestilence and death and manslaughter. He's talking about the way he made it seem like this was like 10 Commandments, or not 10 Commandments, the plagues. He made it seem like the world was just, listen, the world's violent. There's a lot of, bad things going on, but he made it seem like it was, it was Twister everywhere around the world.
Yeah, and
which would be crazy if just Twisters were everywhere around the world. You know how many cows would be in the air?
We might need a movies, films, and flicks data dump on that. But I think what intrigues me, no matter what cut you fancy, is this idea that Dr. Wynn happened to recruit all the locals and even Mrs. Blankenship, sweet Mrs. Blankenship, as cult people. They're just sort of standing around in robes and, they're getting ready for a ceremony under the mental hospital. And then you've got, in the producer's cut, Michael Myers just hanging out, in his coveralls. He didn't have to wear a hood or a robe. And it's a very casual. I think that's the only word I can give it. It's just a little surreal too. I think Daniel Farrens and the creative team acknowledged and admitted that they needed to punch it up and fix things, but they certainly didn't intend for it to go the way they did in the theatrical. So, yeah.
So they want to sacrifice one family?
I don't know, man. That whole thing is just so muddled, and I don't think it's anybody's fault. They really swung for the fences on, certain thematic devices, but I think the most enticing aspect of this project, right, this idea that there's a motivation, Thorn and all that, it's also its most damning, right? Because we found this out again in Rob Zombie's Halloween, which is this idea that we want to over-explain a character that thrives on mystery, right? That somehow this explanation of bloodlines and cults and runes and the stars somehow motivate a guy in coveralls and a mask to kill his family. It's like, I kind of liked not knowing, but thanks for that.
And I like that the runes appear in 63, 78, 88. Or the stars, right. The constellation.
Yeah, the stars align in those years.
So
it's just like a high school kid's idea of what's really deep and sinister for a serial killer, I suppose.
I like that Tommy actually figures that out, though, about the stars aligning.
I do. You're right. I think if there's anything to be said about the whole cult of Thorn and the mystery and the runes and all that, it's that Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle really falls on that grenade, so to speak. He runs with it, and he does seem like the classic creepy conspiracy theorist in an endearing way, not in a 2019 way, because I don't think it's too cute, charming anymore. But you're right that he cares. He wants to save lives. And he's obviously traumatized from his childhood experience with Michael Myers.
He is spying on Kara, though, when she is changing.
He's more than a little creepy, and maybe that's less charming. But he's Paul Rudd, so, you forgive him.
I think they're like, yeah, he's harmless. I'm like, I don't think that's harmless, but it's Paul Rudd.
Well, it's also very different times, and I hate to be that person, but, you think about what qualifies as creepy guy behavior now versus 1995. I guess they got away with a lot more back then.
Yeah. That was cool in '95.
I don't know about cool, but I
It
guess
wasn't as creepy?
it was, yeah, I mean, you weren't calling the police just yet, I guess.
And what's crazy too is when she catches him, he doesn't just swing away going, oh, like whistling behind him.
No, he's like, yeah, I know that you saw me see you.
Yeah. He's just, yeah, oh yeah. He's like, what, you know that gif of Jack Nicholson in Anger
Yeah,
Management?
the leering smile, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he should have just turned away and whistled, but he didn't do that.
No, maybe Paul Rudd of today would do that, but Paul Rudd of 1995 was a V-serious actor.
Now I gotta say something though. Two scenes I think should have stayed in the director's cut.
Okay.
So the producer's, geez Louise, there's a producer's cut and then the theatrical cut. In the theatrical cut, they should have kept the mom going, stay away monsters, stay away ghouls, don't mess with Danny, you jerk knows the rules. Like
That's cute, yeah. I'm surprised you remember that.
Like she's being a mom. Like that's nice. Like it's a nice, because there's no other scenes between those two. There's really no, like there's a couple, but you never get a sense
they're fleeting.
of.
They're fleeting, yeah.
And then there's that scene where, I don't know why they cut this in the theatrical, where the mom slips $20 to Kara. Like, why would you cut that?
Well, it's definitely in the theatrical. They just don't show it up close, so it's implied. Okay. And then the father blows his gasket and throws it back at her.
Because I never saw the 20 until the producer's cut.
Yeah, no, she slips her some cash and he makes a big fuss about it. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting cuts that were made, and I don't remember all of them on the top of my head. Of course, most of them came from the sort of final act, which, yeesh.
Wait, before we get to the final act, I gotta tell you something. Jamie Lloyd can drive.
And?
Well, she was kidnapped when she was a young kid who never drove. She was probably locked up, and then she gets in a car and knows exactly how to do it.
Actually, yeah, let's talk about that, because that's also something that sort of gets buried in all of the other problems in this movie, and it has no shortage of those. This idea that let's do the math here. So Jamie Lloyd in '89, right? She is abducted by the Man in Black out of the police station in Halloween 5. She is maybe 8, 9. Yeah. 10, I don't know, let's say 10. And however many years later, so 6 years later, gosh, that's still pretty young. J.C. Brandy did not look 16. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff to get through here, but she's been held captive for at least 6 years. It's implied, it's never confirmed. In the producer's cut, they would have you to believe that this is Jamie and Michael's kid. That is not the case in the theatrical. It's left up to your imagination, but yeah, this idea that she was impregnated by somebody, Michael maybe, yeah, she's been kept there for a long time. That's something. Yeah, I don't know where she was kept.
No one does anybody make a big deal out of that?
Yeah, like I said, this movie's got a mountain, and that is the molehill, I think, when you're talking about logical fallacies. So yeah, it just occurred to me, honestly, like just how bizarre. Like they're asking us a lot up front, right? We've cut to 95, and it's 6 years after the events of Halloween 5, and we're just supposed to believe that, I guess they've been feeding her, clothing her in an underground lair. She's not seen daylight. It's a stretch.
It's a sanitarium, right? So maybe they had an extra room for her there?
That's definitely possible, but I feel like if that were the case, we might have even gotten more context and backstory, like Dr. Wynn flashbacks with her in a padded cell or something. I don't know, but it's all truly bizarre.
It's a weird subplot, and then she gets silencer to death.
That character just, yeah, what a terrible way to end her role.
I'm telling you, I wish Danielle Harris would have gotten the money for that role, but I'm happy she's not in it, because I don't know, I like her in 4 and 5. I would have.
She's great. She's wonderful.
And imagine what Halloween diehards would have thought seeing that.
You're right. I think most of them still would have preferred it, but you're right. It might have been a bit more difficult, because I actually don't know how old she would have been, if that would have been true to age, because again, they're trying to, this character is supposed to be of age to at least have a child, and I don't know how many people would react poorly if it was a very clearly teenaged Danielle Harris on the run with a kid. So it's all very messy.
Yeah. And they also said she was 17 at the time, and they didn't want to pay her. So
that's right.
And then
she's come to that.
Yeah, she's like, I have to get emancipated from my parents to get this rate.
She went through the process, I think.
Yeah, and then she just finally, the last day of pre-pro, she decided not to.
Yeah, they definitely did her raw, which is upsetting. But with the J.C. Brandy role, which she did all right, serviceable. You got Marion Hagen is Kara, and Paul Rudd, of course, is Tommy. But I think we're neglecting, of course, Donald Pleasance in unfortunately his last role, which not actually confirmed or sure of how much he completed. I don't know if he actually shot all the scenes they wanted or what the deal was. I have to imagine there was some that they wanted to pick up with him, but he did die in I think the middle to latter part of production, which is unfortunate. But he carried the last couple sequels, this movie included, and it's a bummer he's no longer with us. But he was a perfect Van Helsing to Michael, I suppose.
And he did a good job in this movie, I think, with his age and the issues he was going through.
Oh, totally. And I would have been none the wiser. Some people say that he looks very visibly frail, and he's an older guy, but he didn't look incapable by any means.
That seems like hindsight watching that. And I'm not going to say someone's wrong for saying that, but I never got that vibe once. He hung in there. I was proud of him. He did do that weird yelling scene when Tommy's like, meet me tomorrow at 9. And then he runs away and he's like, Tommy! Or,
Tommy, wait! Yeah. Well, that's not including the weird screaming scene that he did at the end of, both cuts. You see the scream in the producer's cut. You only hear the scream in the theatrical cut. And some people say that's goofy. Honestly, I think it's chilling, and that's just me personally, but you hear that scream, and maybe it's because we know he's not with us anymore. Maybe it's because we know after all these years, Michael won somehow. I find it unsettling, and I almost find it oddly appropriate for that movie, because I don't think any of those movies deserves a happy ending, really. That's what makes them horror movies. But yeah, it makes me feel ambivalent, because it's a reminder that he's no longer with us, but by the same token, it is a chilling, it's sort of the long defeat, right? They talk about in fiction, you fight and fight and you get a few victories, but ultimately you're destined to lose. And that's kind of what happens with Dr. Loomis.
Wow, that's pretty deep, man.
Thank you.
Why didn't they just send Michael Myers to Loomis's house just to kill him?
Wait, who's they? Like the cult?
Yeah.
Why didn't they send Michael Myers to his cabin? Because that's not the end game. By that time, Loomis was, small potatoes. He was out of the picture. He was an agent to protect people. He wasn't an agent. He wasn't a Laurie Strode type. He wasn't somebody Michael was seeking out, maybe here in some good faith when he was taking care of him at the sanitarium. But I never felt that Loomis was a target, so to speak.
So do you think they brought him in to keep tabs on him? Because let's say Loomis is in his cabin and he hears about the Michael Myers killings.
Right.
He's going to kind of go rogue and start looking. So if Wynn brings him in, then they're like, okay, we know where he's at.
Well, that's interesting, and it makes me think about the beginning of the movie. Because what happens, right, is Jamie Lloyd, by virtue of a kind nurse, that's another thing. Why, after all these years, is this kind nurse, under her own duress, I'm sure, suddenly sympathetic to her cause, and helps her escape? So Jamie Lloyd escapes. Dr. Wynn, being the big bad, of course, must know about this to some extent. And does he just decide to pay a visit to Dr. Loomis and then happens to hear on the radio Jamie Lloyd call into the radio station? It's all very serendipitous. So, odd coincidences. Maybe it's all in the stars.
Oh, wow. So he goes there after because he said 5 hours on back roads, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good detail pick. Yeah, I mean, it's all very coincidental.
So he
and
left before she
lucky.
escaped, right?
I guess that's the luck of it. Yeah.
Wait, why wouldn't he be there for...
Well, I think they're celebrating his retirement, right? Or something like that. Old friends.
No, but why wouldn't he be there for the baby being born?
Why wouldn't he be there? That's a good question. You're right. If you're running this operation, you'd think you'd want to be there for the big delivery.
So I'm going to visit Loomis during what we've planned for 6 years.
It's odd.
Interesting.
It's not the oddest choice that they made in this movie, but it's up there.
That just hit me.
I mean, you really start to unpack this movie, and it's it'll throw you for a loop.
My curiosity though is just, I don't think I've ever heard of a movie with different so obviously there's Dawn of the Dead, and people have their arguments about, there's 8 separate cuts, but then there's 3 main cuts: the Argento, the theatrical, then the director's. And then you have...
Oh, sure. I mean, you got Blade Runner has the same thing. Exorcist 3 had the same deal. There's lots of movies with storied, cursed productions with different cuts.
But this is the most... people were going gaga about this. Like I was reading online that a lot of people refused to buy it illegally. They didn't want to just go out and buy it. Like this seemed like a very sought after thing. Where Blade Runner, I think, just was released. Like
I guess.
Hey, you want another one? Here's another one. Here's another one. Buy this one. Buy this one. Buy this one.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason this didn't